I got into it fairly backwards, at least at the time. I actually started as a DJ, it's like a very kind of like awkward white kid DJ in high school, and I got into collecting records more or less, and then that just kind of over the years turned into like a deep passion for music and record collecting and listening, um, and so that's I think before I was even like playing anything, I was already kind of had a deep sense of aesthetics and sort of like different canons in terms of like jazz or electronic music or whatever. And that kind of just gradually and naturally turned into me picking up the saxophone and piano and doing production and making beats and things like that. I think I was about 23 when I started playing the saxophone. It was my last year in college. Yeah. Yeah, at that point, it was very directly, like I was very directly influenced by music, not many other art forms at that point. Um, and I think there's a German record label called ECM that was like hugely influential for me, specifically artists on it like Keith Jarrett, Charles Lloyd, Jan Garbarek. But then I definitely listened to the kind of like classic jazz like John Coltrane. But I was more excited by John Coltrane's kind of later, more experimental, freaky stuff, and dabbled in a little Sun Ra at the time and other things like that. Yeah. Yeah, I would say that my process is that I don't have a process. um, it's just I just let things, I'm kind of I have a voracious appetite, or at least I go in and out of having a voracious appetite in terms of like consumption of music or literature or art or just conversations with friends and things like that. And I think that all really informs just where I'm at as a person, and then building from there turns into music. But of course, like aesthetically, I think what I'm hearing now is really like an amalgamation of all of these different sort of musical influences, even ranging from like electronic, music, from like basic channel, rhythm and sound to Aphex Twin or Square Pusher, and then that stuff kind of like combining, um, with this kind of improvisational spirit, as well as the sort of like jazz background that's always kind of constantly there. Yeah, it's really just a feeling. I think when I play live, what excites me, are unique situations like this, rather than just like setting up on a stage with good sound or whatever. I like to sort of react to unique acoustic settings or unique players. Obviously this is a solo thing, so it's kind of I'm thinking of it as a sort of dialogue between the piece and myself, and like really not going into it with too many preconceptions or ideas, but really just trying to react and just be in the moment with it. Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, the shape is super interesting, and then also like this kind of like high grade steel, and kind of thinking in terms of, I'm playing both saxophone and bass clarinet, and sort of thinking how the different materials, wood of the bass clarinet or brass of the saxophone sort of affect, and kind of dialogue with the steel of the Serra sculpture. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm gonna equate performing arts with personal expression, just these two kind of like just kind of a universal thing. Um, and I think a world without that is an incredibly sad world. And just in terms of, I think even if you don't make art, or it doesn't matter. I think everyone is inspired in some way by performing artists or painters or writers or whatever, or or chefs even. And so I think all of these things are important to just kind of create a feedback loop for everybody, and just all of these people create little things that help us just get through the day, and like it sort of conjures the ability to sort of look at life in different perspectives, from different perspectives and different angles. That's something I think about quite a lot, especially now that I have a lot of time to think. Um, I think Los Angeles is a very interesting place in terms of creativity because you get already pre-pandemic you live a sort of isolationist kind of life, and you know most of us have some sort of space, and we don't sort of like go out on the street and are inundated by just like mania. There's always a little bit of a barrier here, and so I think that creates a lot of kind of like dreaming. um, and I've definitely noticed it in the music here. I think, at least in the sort of contemporary, like experimental electronic world, there's a lot of like dreamscapey kind of sounds happening right now. And it just, I mean, for me personally, it just gives me a kind of like a unique sense of space and room to experiment and like not feel pressure to sort of fit into anything. I think there's a lot of dynamism to this city and a lot of people doing different things. I could describe what I'm striving for, I think, and that is just a sense of kind of purity, um, and whatever that entails, really. Yeah, just honesty and sort of genuine like artifacts. I think that's sort of like what I'm after. That's what I'm trying to create, whether it's in the studio or live or whatever. Yeah. Honestly, I know it's gonna sound cliche, but it's really just a feeling. It's like, and the more I do this, the more I learn to sort of trust that feeling and understand it, and like not try to explain it, but just like kind of just feel it in the gut. Yeah.